What is up, everybody? Today we're going to discuss how annuities are taxed and why it matters for your retirement. My name is Dan Trinati. I'm the CEO of 360 Financial Group, and I'm super excited to run through this with you guys today here sitting in Colombia, South America. I was going to say South Carolina, but that's not true. I just live in South Carolina normally. Anyway, I always like to have some fun. And if you're a client and you want to just link up together, I'm more than happy to travel to you to see you in person. Or if you're an agent and just want to do some fun stuff together, please just let us know. And you can go to our contact page or our website at 360financialgroup.com. Go to the contact section up there and just fill out the form. I will personally send you a message and get in contact with you. But today it's very, very important. If you're approaching the retirement years, if you're like 50 and up, really 45 and up, and you're considering putting some of your money into an annuity, you need to understand how they are taxed and what the tax implications are, if any, of making that big decision. So anyway, I always like to give you guys just like a little life updates. So I was just down in Charleston, South Carolina with a bunch of friends for a bachelor party. And then the very next day I flew down to Colombia, Medellin. I spent some time in the mountains for a little bit, and now I'm here with the team, and we got a lot of fun stuff happening with the team the next couple weeks. And anyway, that's what we're doing. Always like to have some fun. So again, if you ever wanted to do that, travel with us. If you're a client, if you're an agent, a potential client, just let us know. I'm more than happy to put something together for that. It was funny. I made a post on one of my Instagram stories, and it just so happens there's a guy down here in Medellin. His name is Mauricio. So Mauricio, if you're watching this, I just thought that was awesome. I landed in Medellin and put a story out, and he said, hey, I'm also in Medellin, and now we might be having a coffee together just to see if there's any commonalities and what we can do for the clients. But anyway, the agenda today. So we are going to run through the difference between qualified and non-qualified accounts, the tax implications of annuities, how they're taxed, and we're going to discuss the LIFO. Well, a lot of people have LIFO, FIFO with accounting, but we're going to use the LIFO and exclusion ratios when it comes to annuities. We'll go through some early withdrawals, how to transfer your money, and also, which is very important, like once you're 73 to 74, depending on when you were born, you will need to start doing what's called required minimum distributions, where the IRS is going to make you withdraw some of your money. And if you do not plan accordingly and start taking some money out before then, you could be getting hit with really big unexpected tax bills. So we'll go through a little bit on how to do that here as well. But to start like all the way up top, there's two main types of money, and they're taxed very differently based on where they're coming from. We'll go more into this in a second, but you guys all probably heard of a lot of these accounts. You have a qualified account, and then you also have what's called a non-qualified account. So your qualified account are mostly going to be your employer-sponsored ones, and typically they're going to be tax-deferred vehicles, meaning we haven't yet paid the taxes on it. But when we go to take that money out, that's what we're going to get taxed on, and that's where the RMDs are going to come into. So some traditional accounts when it comes to the qualified stuff is you're going to look at your 401k is the biggest one that everyone typically know. You have your TSP, a 403b, any really employer-sponsored plans, traditional IRAs. So if you had like an old 401k, you leave your job for whatever reason, you're no longer there, you have to then transfer that over into what's called typically a traditional IRA. And also you're looking at your simple and SEP IRAs more on the business owner side of things. The non-qualified accounts over here on the right-hand side of the screen, this is going to be any money that really has already been taxed. It's not always the case, but it's typically going to be the case. So if you have cash in a bank, a brokerage account, a Roth IRA, a CD, these are all going to be your non-qualified accounts. And you might be thinking, what does this all matter? We'll get into that more here in just a second. So for example, your non-qualified accounts, as we're talking about, they're typically funded with after-tax money, and they typically are like fewer tax restrictions. And on the right-hand side, we're going to break down the different account types that are out there in regards to the non-qualified accounts and also how they're taxed. And you might wonder, hey, why didn't we go through the qualified accounts first? Well, because typically your qualified accounts have not been taxed yet. So when you go to take that money out, 90-ish, 95% of the time, they're always going to be taxed at whatever your ordinary income tax rate is. But the different types of accounts on the non-qualified side, you have the banking account or checking account. The interest on those is going to be taxed annually. We'll get into more on how it's taxed inside of an annuity, but this is, again, just for simplicity to get us some good foundation as we're going through this. A brokerage account, that's going to be taxed on the capital gains. If you're buying and selling stocks, it's just going to depend if it's long-term or short-term for how long you had it. Typically over a year, you're going to be looking at a long-term capital gains tax, which is a lot more favorable than the short-term. Short-term, you're typically looking at ordinary income tax. And then you also have the dividends on that. A Roth IRA. If you guys don't know, if you're under 50 as of 2025, you can put in $7,000 per year. If you're 50 and up, you can play catch up a little bit. You can put in up to $8,000 a year into a Roth IRA. This is after-tax money that's going into it, and all the funds, when you go to take it out, are all going to be tax-free. Now, you do have to wait until 59 and a half to not get hit with that 10% IRS penalty on the gains. You can take out the contributions. You just can't take out the gains without that 10% penalty. You can also be looking at a non-qualified annuity, and you go to take that money out. It's going to be taxed at ordinary income tax rate. And then you also have CDs, which is going to be taxed every single year. So a lot of our clients do have like CDs that they're moving into annuity, just so that way you're not getting taxed every year. You're not trying to grow, then tax, grow, tax, grow, tax. But it's all going to grow tax deferred until you go to take that money out. The one big thing with the brokerage accounts is they don't operate as friendly. Other accounts that you're looking at here operate pretty friendly when it comes to annuities and transferring it. The brokerage account's a little bit trickier just because you're going to have to really sell a lot of the stocks and then put it inside of an annuity. You know, if you just have, and we'll talk more about a transfer in a second, but if you have just a traditional 401k and you're transferring it to annuity, you are not going to get hit with any taxes. You're just rolling it over into a different account. So anyway, that's the non-qualified stuff. So how are all these non-qualifieds going to be taxed? And this is going to depend on what type of annuity it is. And again, if you guys ever want to chat and you're not sure what your specific scenario is, this is exactly what we help out all of our clients with. You know, what is your current tax rate? What we project it to be? You know, assuming the tax rates stay the same, what's the Social Security? Or what is the income gap? Do we need to make up any income? So please, if you have any questions on that, do not hesitate to reach out to us. And if you do have any questions that are going through this, drop a comment down below. We would love the support from all you guys. We do put a lot of work into getting these videos out there and putting it all together. So that would mean a lot to us. So thank you. But anyway, there's two basic ways that you will be taxed when it comes to an annuity. And this is going to be for your non-qualified accounts. Again, because all the qualified accounts, most of them have not yet been taxed. So no matter what you do, when you take that money out, it is going to be taxed. But again, for the non-qualified, there's two different things that we're going to look at here. We're going to go fairly in depth to these two. The first one is going to be LIFO, last in, first out. This is, again, non-qualified. And when you would use the last in, first out method is if you do not annuitize something, you don't turn it into guaranteed income, you just let it sit there and grow, and maybe you take out 20K or 50K or 100K from the account, but you're not taking out 20K per year in guaranteed income. That is going to be taxed on the LIFO side of things. So the last in, first out, the first part is going to be taxed. And then once we get after the first part, we'll start getting the return of principal, which is not going to be taxed because it was just your money from the very beginning. The exclusion ratio, this is going to be again for the non-qualified annuities. And if you annuitize it and turn it into periodic payments, say, hey, you know what? Give your money over to the annuity company. They say, I'm going to give you $10,000 a year for the rest of your life, or whatever that number is. We're going to use the exclusion ratio on that because it's guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And now let's get into a little bit more. Just gotta make sure my computer does not overheat here. It is getting very hot out here. If I'm probably sweating, but anyway. So on the LIFO side of things, this is gonna be without annuitizing it. So last in, first out. The earnings are gonna be taxable as ordinary income if we're ever taking this out from a non-qualified account. The remaining is gonna be all tax-free, which we already talked about that on the previous slide. So here's gonna be an example on the bottom. So you're gonna take $100,000. You're going to turn it into 140K. And again, this is just an example. You take out $10,000 a year. You're not annuitizing it in $10,000 every year. You're just taking out $10,000 1 year or per year. And you could do more or less. But let's say that the first $40,000 that you take out, it could have been $10,000 per year. You could have taken out that $40,000 up front. That is going to be 100% taxable, that first 40%. The next $100,000, it's going to be tax-free just because it's a return of principal that you're getting back to your account. So that's the last in, first out. That's going to be your typical growth annuities you're going to be looking at using this method right here. The exclusion ratio gets a little bit more complicated, but again, this is all stuff that we can help you out with to let you know what your tax bill is going to be, which is very, very important as you're making these plans for your retirement years. So you're getting $10,000 guaranteed per year. You annuitize your annuity, meaning you're no longer trying to grow it. You want the money out from it for the rest of your life. And this is going to be taxed based on this determines what percentage of your money that you're getting back, the $10,000, is going to be tax-free or is going to be taxable. So how we do that? The exclusion ratio is going to be the expected return divided by the contribution in the contract. And I will show you an example on the next screen of how that's going to work in case this is getting a little bit confusing for you. But the breakdown of these terms, the contribution to the contract is just the money that you originally paid for the annuity. That's it. The expected return is going to be the total amount that the annuity is expected to pay out over your lifetime. And that's going to be based on the IRS life expectancy table or the contract terms. And if you ever want to know what that is, you can actually just go to this link down here. I'll put it in the description as well. Just the IRS website. They're going to let you know what the life expectancy is based on what age you currently are and what the payout would be. And that's going to be what's going to determine what percentage is going to be taxable versus tax-free. So now go to the next screen here. So let's say you bought a non-qualified annuity. And again, we're talking about non-qualified because all the qualified money is going to be taxable because you have not yet paid taxes on that. So let's say you put $120,000 into this annuity contract. And you could just annuitize like a growth annuity, or you could be using one of those income annuities, the guaranteed lifetime income from one of those contracts as well. either of them, as long as you annuitize it, we are going to be looking at the exclusion ratio. So let's say the insurer, they're going to pay you out $1,000 a month for 20 years based on the IRS guidelines, and what they're going to pay out for $240,000 total. So we're going to take that exclusion ratio. The $120,000 divided by the $240,000 is going to put us at 50%. So now let's say you have that $1,000 a month payment. The first $500 is going to be tax-free. The other $500 is going to be taxable income. And this is going to continue until a full $100,000 is recovered. They already returned all of your principal. After that, 100% of the money is going to be taxable because none of your money is in there anymore. You already got all of your money back. That's the exclusion ratio. There's a lot of questions is, hey, what if we take our money out early? How does that work? So this would be, if you're in your 40s or early 50s looking at an annuity contract, how is this going to affect you? If you're after 60, it really doesn't matter nearly as much. A lot of it's just going to be before the age of 59 and a half. So if you're before the age of 59 and a half, you're going to owe the IRS a 10% penalty, and this is going to be on the taxable portion of your withdrawal. This is going to be both for qualified and non-qualified accounts. So if you have $100,000 just sitting in the bank as a 50-year-old and you just put that into an annuity, if you take it out before the age of 59 and a half, the growth of it is going to be taxed at ordinary income rates, but you're also going to have the 10% penalty on it. On the non-qualified annuities, again, that's going to be the LIFO, so kind of going up to what we just talked about as well. So 100% is going to be taxable at the beginning of it, plus that 10% penalty. So sometimes it's not advantageous if you're planning to use that money, but if you can let it just sit there and grow, it could be a great fit. Qualified annuities, entire withdrawal is going to be taxable plus a 10% penalty, but we already knew that based on the stuff that we were already talking about. Exceptions to the 10% penalty, and there are some more than this, but if there's like a disability, a death of the annuity owner, if you end up using what's called the substantially equal periodic payments, the SEP 72T, if you have a question on that, I can go more in depth into that, but you're pretty much taking out periodic payments from it, and this also applies to your 401k as well as the SEP 72T. Some medical expenses and annuities inside qualified plans starting at 85. If you've left the job, there's a couple of different exceptions for this as well. It really just depends on your personal situation. Again, if you have any question on this, please just let us know. I'm more than happy to help you out. Can you transfer your annuity? So this is a very big question, right? A lot of people that we work with transfer their funds from somewhere that it's currently into an annuity. How does that work? Also, can you transfer annuities, annuity to annuity? So this table that we're looking at here is really going to break down all the different types of accounts and how we can transfer them and if there's any tax implications. So if you're looking at a qualified to qualified account, you can 100% do that tax-free because it's keeping the same tax status. You're not changing the tax status of the annuity. That's going to be like a 401k into an annuity. It's still going to maintain the same tax status as a 401k. So you can kind of look like a 401k is like the umbrella. You can put stocks into the 401k. You can put annuities into a 401k. They're all going to maintain the same tax status. So you can do that penalty-free and tax-free. And when you take the money out, it will be taxable, but the transfer itself will not. Non-qualified to non-qualified. And if you're following a pattern here, like to like, you can typically do no problems. So on a non-qualified to non-qualified, you're going to use what's called a 1035 exchange to avoid taxes typically, and it's going to be similar to the qualified. You can just roll it over, no problems asked. Qualified to non-qualified and non-qualified to qualified, we do not want to do this. You do not want to change this tax status of your account. Now, if you have a 401k and there's $1 million in there and you transfer that $1 million into a non-qualified annuity, you're going to have taxes on that full $1 million in that 1 year. We do not want to do that. We could look into some stuff, what's called like a Roth conversion, where we're transitioning that more into like a Roth IRA. So instead of doing that $1 million up front, we're taking, let's say, for lack of better words, $200K per year for the next 5 years. So keeping your tax liability a lot lower, because you can imagine if you're getting taxed on $1 million of income, you're giving so much money to the government. That's just not necessary. Again, if you guys have any questions on that, we can help you plan with this as well to figure out what the best routes would be for your retirement and how this is going to be taxed. So RMDs is very important. Again, if you're on the younger side, it's not like you need to know all this stuff, but you need to know it is going to come. If you're in your 60s, you got to start planning for this now, because if you wait until your 70s to worry about your RMDs, your tax liability from your qualified accounts are going to go through the roof. So anyway, what are RMDs? RMDs are required minimum distributions. The IRS is going to tell you how much money that you need to take out from these accounts. And when do they start? So if you turn 73 between the years of 2023 and 2032, RMDs are going to start at 73. If you turn 74 from 2032 and onwards, the RMDs are going to start at age 75. This is very, very important. So what accounts are subject to RMDs? If you want to keep it very simple, pretty much any qualified accounts are going to be subject to your RMDs. Very simple. If you want to keep it that simple, you can keep it that simple. How are the RMDs actually going to be calculated? So they're going to take whatever your account balance is of December 31st of the previous year and divide it by your life expectancy factor. And if you want to get more into that, again, the IRS releases those publications once a year, so you can figure that stuff out as well. To keep it simple, the IRS wants their money, so you're not just taking it into forever and ever and delaying taxes. They want to make sure that you're paying the money on it, and then you got to put it somewhere else anyway if you're taking it out. So like, anyway, there's a lot of stuff that we can do to help you guys with this to minimize your future tax liability. So the RMDs, again, are going to be taxed as ordinary income. They're going to be added to whatever other income you have, wages, Social Security, etc. And they're going to push you. They not can, but they will push you into a higher tax bracket, especially if you are not careful with how you're actually taking the money out. If you're not taking any money out, that account's like millions and millions of bucks, you're going to have to take out like $500K a year. And that's all going to be ordinary income tax. We're just throwing money away to the government. If we planned for that before that happened, we could have taken out $100K or $200K per year and put that into different investment vehicles, different annuities as well, and to help minimize your tax liability. So how do RMDs affect annuities? So if you haven't annuitized the annuity, let's just say it's sitting there and growing, you still have to take out the withdrawal from the RMD and from the contract, which can be a bummer. Even if you weren't planning to take out income yet, you still have to take that money out. Insurance company also, they can help you calculate what the RMDs will, and the money that you're taking out from this will also be applied again to your total RMDs. If you have annuitized the annuity, your monthly payments can count towards your RMDs. If they do not satisfy your RMDs, you might have to take additional withdrawals to accept it. And what happens if you skipped an RMD? You do not want to do this because you might face a 25% penalty from the IRS if you do not withdraw your RMDs. It could be reduced to 10% if you correct it in time, but still, it's not good. You want to make sure you're always taking out your RMDs. So in summary, I know this was a lot to go through here. Know where your money's coming from and where it's going to. If it's coming from a qualified account or a non-qualified account. Your qualified annuity income is going to be fully taxable. It's going to be taxable anyway because it's in a qualified account 99% of the times. Non-qualified income from an annuity is going to be partly tax-free using the exclusion ratio, or if we're using the LIFO method, which is a growth annuity as well. And don't take out money early unless you're sure, because you're going to avoid that 10% penalty. And transfers and rollovers can be tricky. Ask us for help. So I appreciate you guys following along for the last like 15 or so minutes here. I really hope this is helpful information for you. If you have any questions whatsoever, if you're an agent, if you're a client looking to get an annuity, schedule a time on my calendar. Just go to that 360financialgroup.com and go to the contact section, and I will personally reach out to you to set up a time for us to connect. But anyway, y'all, I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm going to go enjoy Colombia here. I'll catch you next time. Bye.